Hello again YouTube and welcome to a somewhat delayed weekly vlog. As you can see, there's no strange locations for this one. This is just one from the desk like I used to do. And the reason for that was that last week was what I'd classify as a week of disappointments. Now, let me talk about this week of disappointments. It began with a conversation that I started off last weekend or the weekend before with a couple of guys I used to cycle with. And as the UK is coming out of lockdown, I just thought, do you know what? The time has come. Maybe we need to get back out on the road together. So I put out, like a WhatsApp saying, shall we do it? And everyone was up for it. Unfortunately, as it got closer to the day, that fell apart. One of our number needed to complete some decorating, and it was a bank holiday weekend, and you don't get many of those in the UK, and I totally get that. My other mate Brian, who you've seen in another video, you've seen him in the ride vlog video I did a while back. Yet Brian had broken his bike. He tried to service the rear free hub and he said, it's still making some odd noises. He brought it round and I had a look at it for him. And really, I think what it came down to is its cup and cone bearings. Funnily enough, I was talking about those last week in the heavy rider bike upgrades thing. Cup and cone bearings, and I think they were just a little bit tight. There's a fine art to adjusting those things, to taking the play out of the bearing and just preloading them enough without loading them too much. And I find you've only got to go just a little bit too tight on them, and you do get that crunchiness, that gratiness. So there's that. So yeah, long story short, we didn't get to ride on Sunday. I did quite an intense mountain bike session on Sunday, which I really thoroughly enjoyed. So let's come on to the highlight of the week for me, or it should have been the highlight of the week for me, which was my FTP test, which I scheduled for Monday. I said to myself, I've been putting this off for a while, and I didn't want to do an FTP test right at the beginning of a training plan because I know theoretically you should do that, but I think where I was, it wasn't going to prove a lot to me. I knew I'd lost a lot of fitness. So what I wanted to do was kind of get myself rolling again, and then roll into an FTP test. So I decided Monday was the day. It just turned out that Monday was the hottest day of the year so far, an absolute scorcher. And I must admit, it kind of messed with my head that I couldn't be doing this out on the road, especially as I'd been out in the morning and just seen like millions of cyclists passing me by. So there's that. So anyway, I found myself about midday in the pain cave, hopping onto the Wattbike for an FTP test. Now, if you've done an FTP test, these things aren't fun. They're not meant to be fun. You're meant to empty the tank on them. You're meant to walk away from that test probably feeling physically sick. I've always said that, like, when you do an FTP test, the real measure is you should walk away feeling physically sick. If you don't feel physically sick, or you were sick, you've done it wrong. So that's just kind of the rule of thumb I apply. But because it was such a nice day and because I was beating myself up being in the pain cave, I decided to do it on the Wattbike. I decided to do it on Zwift. And I thought, well, that's going to make it pass a whole lot quicker than the 20-minute test on the Wattbike hub, which is, all you do is look at data and numbers. So I fired up Zwift and selected the full length FTP test. They've got two of them. One of them's a full length, which is about an hour and 13 minutes. The other one, from memory, I think is about 45. It's called the shorter FTP test. In fact, you can probably see them on the screen here. So I picked the full length one because it gives you a long warm up, and then it gives you your FTP test, and then it gives you a relatively long, in my opinion, cool down. Now, I got to say that I wonder about the way that is structured. It feels to me like the warm-up is a bit too long. I like the little ramps that they put into the warm-up, but You know, you get these little ramps, and then you sort of drop the power back down again, and then you get sort of like a bit of sweet spot, and then you drop the power back down before you're into the FTP test. So you really, I think you've got something like 40 minutes in, 45 minutes in, before you're even into the test, and then you've got to leave it all out there for 20 minutes and then get off. Now, I chose to use ERG mode, ergo mode, as it's referred to. Now, ERG mode is that kind of funky protocol that gets the application to talk to the bike and keep you honest with your power. So what it should do, and what it did do quite effectively through the warm-up, was it ramped up the power in accordance with its power intervals that were set. And, you know, I was getting the increase in resistance, as I should do. But then we find the Achilles heel of using the Wattbike with Zwift's erg mode. When I got to the FTP test, now let me see if I can just pull it up on screen here. You can see the ride profile here. So you've got that big 20-minute lump. That's going to be your FTP test. Now, in that part, what should happen is that the application should release the bike from ERG mode and let you control the resistance. It puts it into a free ride mode. And then when you're done with your 20 minutes, it should switch back into ERG mode so that it can walk you through your cool down procedure. However, I have learned since doing this test that the Wattbike with Zwift tends to cling on to ERG mode. So what happens is you do your warm-up quite effectively. You do your 45 minutes of various activities in the warm-up quite nicely. Then you get to do your FTP test, and what happens is that the ERG mode is locked in. So the ERG mode is looking for a power setting. But the real problem is, because this is free ride and you should be controlling the power, there's no defined power. So it gives you no resistance. And that is exactly what happened to me. 45-minute warm-up. And then, you know, I jumped into that 20-minute block expecting to start using the gears and ramping up the power. And I was just spinning about 135 watts. So what should have been a real, you know, sort of intense test turned into a 45-minute sort of warm-up and variable intervals thing with 20 minutes of easy spinning and then a cool down on the end of it. Now, I guess I could have just, when I got to the 20-minute session, got to the test session, I could have just dumped it and said, you know what, this isn't working, I'm out of here. But I was 45 minutes in then. I thought I might as well just plug through it and see what's going on. So I walked away from it with an FTP, or Zwift, believing I have an FTP of, I think it was something stupid like 160 watts. And the insult was, it said that it's detected an increase in FTP. Well, that doesn't seem to be an increase to me, because I think the last FTP I set in there was about 230. So yeah, lesson learned. I definitely won't be doing a FTP test on the Wattbike with Zwift anymore. I am going to do another FTP test. I'm going to do it next Monday, but I'm going to do it with the Wattbike hub. So yeah, if you are a Wattbike Atom owner and you're looking to do an FTP test, don't mess around with Zwift. Just go straight into the hub and use the 20-minute test there. I've used that before. It's all day reliable. It's not the most interesting screen in the world to watch, but it's a Wattbike workout. You know what they look like. Put your music on and it'll pass relatively quickly. So that was last week. This week I have dived back into the road biking. Now there's going to be a couple of kind of steps up in the training this week. The first one is I'm going to start running again. I've put it off for as long as I possibly can, a bit like the FTP test, but I've got to start running again. But for me, the big one is I've just booked my first open water swim in goodness, do you know what? The last open water swim I did was the last triathlon I did, which was the Fanbridge Half Iron in 2018. So it's been a while since I've been in open water. I have done pool swims since then, but I quit the pool swimming early in 2020 when the pandemic struck, and I didn't fancy being in an enclosed space in a pool of water that could have been used by 6,000 other people trying to give me COVID. So I haven't swum in over a year, and I've not done open water swimming since 2018. So yes, we're booked in for that. I will give you an update on that in the next vlog. In the meantime, thanks for watching this one. And remember, if you are a Wattbike Atom owner, do an FTP test, do it on the hub, don't do it on Zwift. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll catch you in the next.